All right, welcome to another episode of the M2M podcast. I'm your boy, Daniel King Sold.
And I'm Twee Estate.
And we have a very, very special guest in the building, Miss Coco, Miss Catriona Smart.
Hello.
Thank you so very much for coming today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Welcome,
So listen,
welcome.
since we started this podcast, I've always asked, who are some females that are in the city that's making noise, business-wise, entrepreneurship, and your name came up in almost every conversation of, females that are getting busy, making noise, and doing amazing things in the business world, in the industry. So we had to reach out, and we're so happy and so honored that you're able to sit with us today.
Thank you.
So talk to us a little bit about, we have, you do event planning, and you have so many businesses. I heard you have a lot of investments in real estate, but talk to us about your story and how things started and, how we got to where we are right now.
Oh, it's a long story.
Let's go. We got time. Where do we start?
But to start my entrepreneurship journey, I think I've always been that kind of, for lack of better words, hustler. I started working my first job when I was 13, and I've always wanted to work. But when I was in university and paying to get through university, I worked at Investorline, which is a discount brokerage, and I worked at United Colors of Benetton doing retail. But then I also got a bartending job. And figured out that was the most lucrative. This is pre-bottle service, okay? So this is shot for shot, okay? On the Berg system, watching it come out. But I was making upwards of $600-700 a night.
Oh, word.
And when I realized that could be that lucrative, I went from one night to 2 nights to working 5 nights a week. And at the time, my boyfriend at the time was just like, how much money are you making? And my parents were just like, just save. And I'm like, for what? So I would start buying really sick outfits to bartend. And my other bartender friends would be like, why are you spending all your money that you worked so hard for at the bar to go put on a pair of pleather pants to be behind the bar and ruining them, right? And 2 of the women that I worked with actually owned their own property. So they're like, buy a house. I'm like, how am I going to buy a house? That just seems so far out of my. They're like, trust me, save your money, put it under your bed, and buy a house. Well, my boyfriend at the time was a real estate agent, and when I told him how much money I was making, he was like,
that worked out.
Yeah, he's like, give me $1,000 a week, and I'm like, oh, that's so much money. He's like, you said you worked 5 nights a week and you're making over $500 a shift.
Yeah.
Seems pretty easy to me, right?
Yeah.
But
$2,500.
exactly. So he got me to save $30,000, and I bought my first pre-construction
How old
condo.
were you then?
21.
Amazing. I got my first property at 21
Yeah.
as well.
Same.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right?
So tell us about that investment. Where was it? Do you remember how much you paid for it?
East End. I think it was $140,000.
Oh,
I
wow.
think that it was 520 square feet. It was super small. I couldn't even imagine living in
That's
something.
normal
Now
size.
it's normal. That's almost a little big,
Ooh, 500.
and that's how much is that now? Like 700,000-800,000. A lot of. I just didn't understand real estate, and no one spoke to me about it. My parents had bought one house and lost money in the early 90s when they moved to Canada. And so it was always a fear thing about real estate. There was I didn't get those lessons until my boyfriend taught me at the time that real estate's all about the long play, that you need to hold your money there.
Not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, it's that whole idea of HGTV where they flip your home, whatever.
And you make $300,000 and you do this and you paint the walls and just like that. You flip it just like that. So easy.
Exactly. Maybe in one tiny place in the Midwest, but it is in Toronto, not even anymore, right?
Yeah.
But I was able to take that one property, and I think it took me about 4 years to get it to the place where I was going to sell it, and then bought 2 more. Now this I've owned up to now I've owned over 12 properties. So I've done that. It's not as easy anymore. The real estate game, it's not you buy from plans, you're going to be able to make enough profit to buy 2 or 3 properties. But that's what I did that's how I made money.
Yeah, amazing. So what was the first business that you started? I'm assuming that real estate kind of gave you some capital to kind of propel to start your business, or kind of not, sort of?
I'd still use bartending funds.
Okay.
one of the things I had mentioned to you earlier is that we were wearing nice, expensive clothes to bartend because we were just putting our money in that, which is stupid. And we figured that a friend of mine is a designer, and she was working the coat check, and she started to make like these kind of like spandex outfits that you could stick in the washing machine and put it in the dryer and then wear it again the next night. Could get covered in booze and it didn't matter, right? It was like pretty indestructible Lycra kind of fabric. So she was selling those out of the coat check, and I was like, well, I could wear your outfits and we could sell it behind the bar. And then we eventually started a website before like anybody. Shopify did not exist, like, you know, so it was like very, very almost dial up. And we opened a store in Queen West before Vogue said it was one of the #1 cities in the world, and for shopping. There was nothing there. It was crickets. We invested our money in that, and it didn't.
So you guys were one of the Queen Street West pioneers.
Oh yes,
like early,
like way back. Shout out to Get Fresh
before
Get Fresh.
Okay, I was gonna say, we know
he's
Jabril.
Yes, exactly.
We had him on the podcast.
Oh, he's
as
amazing.
well.
I love him. He's an amazing guy. So that, I mean, that kind of lends itself into this whole idea of like your network is your net worth. I bartended at a time when. Sadly, and I still think it happens in Toronto, there was kind of like racism at the door. They wouldn't let certain people in, and I was like the only black bartender. So I would kind of make it my mission that the people that always took care of me were the black people that came to my bar, because I would be nice and everybody else would be mean to them. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're great tippers. So
money's green.
Yeah, exactly. So I would work the nights, the quote unquote black nights people didn't want to work. I always did really well, and then all of a sudden the basketball players started to come. We started to have more of a scene in Toronto, but I always made sure that those people got into the club when the bouncers wouldn't let them in.
Hard time,
and some of those guys have turned out to be the most famous guys in the world. You know, when all of the OVO crew and all those people used to come to my bar underage, and then we're talking about network is your net worth. That come 20 years later, all of those people I can call friends, and that's kind of something what I always talk about is like, don't judge people by what they can do for you. Always be yourself. And
regardless.
and act the way you're going to act always. Always be a good person. You never know how things are going to come back to you. I wouldn't have known that these like little guys that couldn't get into clubs would end up being like the most famous people in the world. So, yeah, I'm on a tangent, but that is part of the story.
Yeah, no, 100%. And speaking of OVO, I know one of my favorite songs right now is Jimmy Cook's, which is your fiance.
Yeah.
When you heard that song originally, what was your thought? And like, tell me what was your original thought?
Did you know it was coming, or it caught you by surprise?
Well, over COVID, we renovated our basement.
Okay.
And so, anytime we were allowed to have gatherings more than 6 people, we would have these little parties in our basement. So it kind of became this kind of like safe haven for everybody. And so it's like Jimmy Cook's, it's, you know, your day ones. Jimmy used to sell Drake's mixtapes on their cross-Canada tours. He was like the guy, you know. Now we've all grown up and have lives and jobs, and but that kind of came out of the idea that like the people who are always there for you will always be there for you, and that there was always this you're always safest when you're with the people your day ones, right? So that's that.
No, that's amazing. And now we talk about like the power of relationships, right? And being able to, you know, knowing certain people will kind of help you get in the rooms, right?
Yeah.
But now as an entrepreneur, and, you know, as a female entrepreneur at that, when you get in these rooms, how do you maximize that, you know, in terms of translating that to, you know, we have good connections, but how do you monetize those, you know, relationships? And now, sure, you're in these rooms. How do you now translate that to make sense, you know, for your business?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's a very hard question to answer. I think coming from a place of not wanting or needing anything, so you're never out there just trying to be like, oh, I know this person, what can I take from that person? It's more about, I have an events company, so I built a business around providing people a good time. And so I don't really need anything from those people directly, but I can say that I have gotten jobs as a result of people knowing who my friends might be, right? Gotcha. So it's not really about a direct ask. But I do think if you're always providing help to other people, that's another thing. I'm in service to everybody. That's just my role, even as a leader, as a boss. One of the former CEOs of Popeyes, the woman that made Popeyes, are kind of like, we know what Popeyes is, took it global, brought it further into North America, because Popeyes used to be a very small brand. She leads with a style of in service to her franchisees. And when I heard her say that, you hear about leadership all the time, and people are always talking about like top down, or you have to like kind of be this overarching boss. But for me, it was like, how can I service people who work for me to make them the best at what they do, so then our job is easier. So when it comes to networking or working my contacts, it's more of I'm there, how can I help you? And as a result of me helping you, you're going to help me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And one of my favorite quotes is actually from Zig Ziglar, and it's essentially saying you could have everything in the world that you want if you help enough people get what they want.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like about helping people make their dreams a reality, and in result, yours will be that.
100%.
So talk to us about this events company. Like, I saw you had an amazing event at the Four Seasons the other day. How did this events company start, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, everything goes back to bartending. So when you were a bartender back then, it was like, we had promoters, but our owners really, they'd be like, how many people are you bringing tonight? So it was all about who could you connect with and who could you forced to come on a Wednesday night when it's snowing outside. Yeah. So I went from like having a lot of people on the guest list to then turning it into, can I throw a night?
Yeah.
This
is a night curated
by
you, Coco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started this thing once I was on my off nights. Me and a friend, Ava, we started. I also really love history. So there was this thing in New York, it still exists, it's called the Social Register. And it's basically how socialites, they would be ranked on like how effective they were in their community. And I'm like...
It's almost like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of...
social score.
It's totally racist and horrible when it comes down to you thinking about it. But I was like, we don't have anything for the like hip hop community. There were so many times that we weren't even allowed into clubs. So I'm going to take your Tuesday night club when no one's coming and it's off night, and allow me to bring in my people, and I'm going to curate a night, and you're going to see, you're going to make money. Everybody's going to be well behaved, and we're going to play our kind of music, right? And so we did it, but every time it was themed. So we would have like a 1920s theme, and everybody would dress up. It was totally awesome. So we'd have flappers, and we'd have special food. And so that's kind of how I started in events, that I love to curate a space for everybody to have a good time. I'm also Jamaican, and Jamaican people, it's like in our DNA to host.
Yeah,
it's always like,
party.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know.
So that kind of grew. And after my clothing line wasn't super successful, I went more into just curating events for brands. So it went from we did events for Remy Martin and different liquor brands, because they had money, but they just didn't have the people, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's how the events company came, and then we started to do actual, real immersive experiences for different hotel brands, and as you mentioned, the Four Seasons. So I started a company, a PR agency 7 years ago with a partner, and we were tasked to bring this kind of, take the hotel out of the hotel. And how do we make a brand like the Four Seasons, how do we make it not your grandparents' Four Seasons? How do we get millennials in that have money to want to have a brand allegiance with this old brand? And I had done it with Cointreau. We called them dusty brands, and nobody really knew what Cointreau was. And so I created a brand, like a marketing campaign. It was based on one of their old drinks. It was called a Ricky. And so I created this whole campaign where it was this guy or this girl. Ricky was coming to town. It was Tiff, and he wants to invite you, or she wants to invite you to their party in a mansion. And nobody knew that it was totally made up, and everybody came to this party. Oh yeah, I know Ricky. I saw him in Saint-Tropez. Oh yeah, and they all came to this mansion to come have this party. and everybody's there, and they're like, "Where's Ricky?" And 2 actors I hired, a male and a female, were both Ricky going around the party. And then at the crux of the party, like when everybody was in the room and everybody's like, "Well, no, I met Ricky," they meet each other, and they're actually paid actors, and they got into a fight and pushed each other in the pool. So that ended up becoming like a global story that they told. And from that, Four Seasons wanted, like I was explaining before, to take the hotel out of the hotel, and we took this series called the Pop Down, so pop down into the Four Seasons instead of a pop up, and we brought it
on a yacht, right?
On a yacht
I
in
saw
Miami,
that.
a 350-foot yacht. Ooh, that was crazy.
Yeah, tell us about that. Like, I've never even seen a yacht that big in person.
Neither
before.
had I.
How did you plan that?
That's a cruise ship.
It's a full cruise ship. It was the owner of our hotel, of the hotel that we represent in Toronto, Four Seasons Toronto, is Shahid Khan, and he owns this yacht. And he's like, we did the party in Toronto, and we took over. Theater Park had a space that they were going to make a restaurant, but nobody was in there yet. So we took that over and we transformed it into this amazing event. And he was like, "Do you want to use our yacht?" And we're like, "Yes, we do." In fact,
sign us up.
In fact, we do. So that was a crazy experience. They have 32 full-time staff that work on that boat all year long,
Wow.
if you can imagine. And we brought the party on, but it was one of the hardest events because we were craning bars onto it. Everything had to be brought on, and it ended up being an amazing night. We brought 6 chefs in, 4 of which were Michelin star chefs to cook, and so all of our guests got to experience what it would be like to be at a Four Seasons. But we brought someone in from Florence to cook, and we brought someone in from all over the world, someone in from Asia, and they cooked their specialty. So it was a food and beverage kind of like surprise all night long, which was pretty cool.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. Then we went to Hong Kong. We brought it to Hong Kong.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys took this thing international.
Yes. Oh, it was international. So we really got our chops, our event chops wet. We know how to work in, it's one thing to work in your environment, you have your people, but to work in a different country with a different language. And all different customs and the way they work. It was like the University of Event Planning.
So even to expound on that, like, what are the challenges being someone that manages an event planning company? Because there's a lot of people, like I know a lot of like females, young entrepreneurs that are trying to get into the event planning space. They're starting with weddings and birthdays and that sort of thing. You see like the balloon garland and stuff. Like that's like the typical event planner. That's how they start, right? But like, how does someone from there kind of scale up to doing corporate events and doing brand partnerships and doing things like that? Like, how do you get from the garland with the 2-3 and the light bulb to
and no shade, okay?
No, not at all, because everybody has to start somewhere, and I hired them all the time.
Yes, exactly, right.
So how do you get from that to a more corporate level type of a structure?
Again, as I said before, it's like your network is your net worth. It's about going out there and finding the business. It's a lot of free work in the beginning. It's a lot of favors. It's a lot of knowing which person and who to do that favor for that will give you something in return, like photos or a tag on Instagram that they'll do it. And it's only allowing for so much of that you can actually become profitable. It's about making relationships. So if you're not the person who makes the balloon garland, it's making a relationship with the person who makes the balloon garland, that you're getting the best price and you're bumping it up so that you're actually making a profit.
Making something on it,
and it's also being the best problem solver around. I think
that's what a glorified
that's what it is.
Events planner is,
That's
right? It's like, how do I mitigate anything from happening?
And they're all happening. All the problems are happening.
At once, exactly.
You could be like, we are so good at events now, but let me tell you, we just did I'm on the board of the Remix Project, which is an amazing program in the city that works with underserved youth. And it's an incredible program, but I was able to, because of my network, get them to have their graduation at History, which was like life changing. Some of the kids who perform there, and they're incredible performers. And we got all of the major labels were there to watch them, which was awesome.
Nice.
So many of them said, like, I can't even imagine being on this stage, right? Like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. But it's about, like, I'm 42. Like, I've spent 20 years working these
grinding.
And working these. The reason why I say this, and I don't want to lead anybody astray, the reason why I have any money is from real estate. I've made money in my business, but not this kind of money.
Gotcha.
Right? So I think we're shying away from this idea. Everybody's talking about a soft life now and wanting to not grind.
I don't get it.
You got to. Like, if you want certain things, if you don't, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Have your 9 to 5. Those people are so important. Those people who work
they make our
corporate,
economy go.
they make it work.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. But listen, if you want to make money and you want to excel and be an outlier, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
No, I can definitely imagine.
So is there one particular real estate transaction that stands out to you? That'd be like your portfolio. Like, what was your most successful flip?
Well, my first, for sure. Because,
That was your first.
Yeah, because
That would set you up.
Yeah, I look back because the profits for that were allowed me to buy 2, right? So
And then from 2 you went on.
and it didn't take any more of my
your own
money
capital.
putting back
Yeah.
in. Now I find I just bought a place in Hamilton, and that's like for me, almost 10 years behind, right? So I bought a condo in Hamilton, but I also am now starting to feel like, oh, now, like, I let my real estate company, it just exists. I don't pull from it. It's growing my net worth on its own, right?
Nice.
I don't use it for expenses or any of those things, but that's where my wealth resides.
Your piggy bank.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That I'm letting grow with interest, but I find more now it's like there needs to be top ups and stuff like that. But I think my most exciting thing is I was able to buy, my fiance and I were able to buy a property in Miami.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
Condo or
a condo,
okay.
but a nice sized condo.
It wasn't
Had
500 square
bedroom.
feet.
No.
No, they give
No.
you some space down there.
Yeah,
Right?
yes. And so that was a big kind of exciting thing. It's so difficult to buy in the States. It's not when you're a foreign investor.
For
It's a
sure.
whole, like, it was a whole lesson. I'm still learning lessons about that. But that was an exciting thing. And I do think, and I'm only saying this not to, like, it's not I'm trying to brag, is that I just think women need to talk more about finances, and women need to talk more about owning things. And we really need to, we're starting to get away from, but people aren't getting married as they used to. People aren't connecting in the way they used to because we're all on apps and there's too much choice. I do think women need to, and that's why I think it's important for financial literacy, that women need to understand their choices and understand buying property and why it's important, and not wait until you get married and share that place. I made, after I learned that lesson from my ex, I made every friend I have buy a property. Yeah. So all of them followed my same thing, and I still to this day get women involved in that. And so now when they get married, and some of them have,
They're bringing something to the table.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's not all about, well, I want to live in Uxbridge. Well, too bad, because I have a deposit too. So I don't want to live there, you know?
There you go.
Women need agency, and so do men, and it makes it more level.
No, 100%. And I heard also through the grapevine that you just purchased an event space.
Well, we didn't purchase, we're leasing.
You're leasing it? Okay.
Yes, but we have our own event space now. So one of the things that is hard with events is finding clientele, and you're fighting against a group of very talented people for all of the corporate business. So now that there's with COVID, there was some movement in people not wanting to have office space or showroom space. We found a space that's perfect for events. It used to be they used to do transmissions. They used to work on cars.
Okay.
Back in the day, so we called it Transmission Studios, and it's really open. It has garage doors, and so now we're renting it out to any event planner who wants to, and we make the money off of the rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you have any new ventures or anything that you could share with us that you got going on?
Yeah, I have a new company called That Good that we'll be launching in the new year.
It's that good, eh?
Yeah, it's that good.
Tell us about it. What's it about?
It's all based off of the ethos that I was speaking about before, that we're in service and that We just want to do good things with cool people and good work. We spend so much of our time at work that if we're going to create a world, let's create it with good people and raise them up. So it has a bunch of businesses under it, because one of the things that I've learned about myself as a serial entrepreneur, that I like to stay busy in lots of different things. So we have an arm that's a talent management agency. Okay. It's called Good People, and everything kind of spawns off of good. So Good People, and that's where we represent a small number of excellent influencers, and we negotiate all their deals. Nice. From being able to know both sides, we know how much corporate has and we know how much influencers want.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're able to finesse that. Yeah. We have Good Spaces, which is our new event space. Okay. Under Transmission Studios. And we have a lot of very exciting things that are coming down from that good umbrella, which you'll see unfold over the next year.
Real estate.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have good talks. So one of the things in that is we're going to have a yearly conference where, well, it might not be yearly, but every couple of months, where we talk about things that are pertinent to people within our generation. And one of them is financial literacy. Yeah, I really important. Just want to be able to break down the mystique about like saving money, what money is good money, what debt is bad debt, what is debt, and why some debt is okay and some isn't, line of credits, all of these kind of things, and have professionals come in that actually speak our language, because if you go and get a financial advisor, I don't know.
I can't understand them.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to know what your fee is.
Yeah, because you're sounding expensive right now. All these words and terms.
Exactly.
No, that's amazing. So we got a lot of good things on the horizon, a lot of great things. That's amazing. Just wrapping up, do you have any words for any female entrepreneurs, any kind of gems or words of wisdom, for women that don't know how to get started in business, or might think that, maybe OnlyFans is the only way that they can make money? Like, how does a young woman that's growing up right now, like, that wants to take control of their life through business, what would your advice be to them?
I mean, no shade to OnlyFans. I started as a bartender wearing bikini tops and low-rise jeans, right? Sure. So, and I made a lot of money and was able to invest in real estate. So no shade on whatever your hustle is. But understand that all of these things have time limits, right? You can age yourself out of anything, and anything that depends on your beauty is a fickle industry. Yeah. So if you're going to stack that bread, stack it and put it invest it in something. My second thing I would say is start. A lot of people are like, I really want to start a blog, or I really want to do a podcast. Start.
Just do it.
Because you're going to spend so much time planning, and you're going to outplan yourself, and you're going to miss whatever you wanted to do.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And my last thing I would say is fail faster. I've been divorced. I have failed at 2 businesses. I've lost money, but I've only been able to be successful because I've failed and I've learned the lesson. So when I had my first failure with our clothing store, I thought I was like done forever, and it took me too long. And instead, I've learned, if I look back, the amount of things I learned from manufacturing to like P&Ls to all of these things that I learned, if I only just took those in and appreciated those lessons to start something new faster, I would have been 5 years ahead of where I am now. So don't let a failure knock you down. There's actual studies that'll teach you that you make your biggest wins after your biggest fails. So
that's amazing. I think a lot of people are just kind of scared to take that first step and scared to fail.
Yes.
But,
there's a reason why there's not so many successful people in the world, and that's fear. Yeah. So if you want to let fear rule your life, then you're going to be in the same place 10 years from now. No, so just don't. For sure. Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all the gems, and we're looking forward to seeing all the amazing things that your ventures and everything is going to be coming in the new year.
Thank you.
So for anyone that's looking to find you, where could they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Coco and Co. But my name's Catriona Smart, so Catriona, and my last name's Smart, Smart. You can find me under all of that everywhere online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
Smart
through.
and good.
Smart and good. Make some smart and good investments, folks, if you're listening here. All right, this is another episode of the M2M podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.